got two interesting guests in our room today. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm having a hard time pronouncing their real names. Well, at least one of
Oh
them.
boy.
Hey, one of them. But she told me we can call her Chi Chi. Don't call her Chi Chi. And I'm gonna let her introduce herself and her whole name. Bethany, I got. Bethany, I can get Bethany out, and
Gotcha.
there's no acronym, there's no cheat on that one. I got Bethany, but Chi Chi is going to tell us her name, and they're both here. They're with an organization called Project Noir, and the name of their organization is Enlightened Solutions, which is a think tank of women, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, of women
All women.
who's looking for solutions on all kinds of levels, and they're going to talk to us about one of their last projects that they did is Project Noir and some of the results of it. I followed this project a few years ago when it first came out. I read it in the newspaper. I thought it was very interesting because of the fact it talked about how it was hard for African American women living in the city of Cleveland.
Mhm.
And not to just spin it or anything, but the first thing I thought, like, hell, if it's hard for them, the brothers must got it terrible. Jesus. If they're in the bottom and we below them, then I don't know. And it got me to thinking that if that's the case, then is Cleveland a good place for us to live at all? And so that was one of the big things that came out of it. And hopefully, through all of this research they're doing on women, that we'll come out with some answers. Hopefully, that we can even get some for the brothers as we go as well. So,
Mhm.
without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Chi Chi. And I want her to pronounce her name because she has a really good name. She has a good first name and a last. I can, she's going to pronounce it. And Bethany to our program, everybody.
Thank you, Ed. So nice to have you. Nice. Chi-Chi is Pacific Fan. That's who everyone calls me. That is my name. Chi-Chi in Camera, and I am the Director of Strategy and co-founder of Enlightened Solutions. And
So
just like you said, we are a 501c3 think tank.
pronounce it again. Your name?
Chi-Chi in Camera.
Kimra.
Yes,
The last name is M. Kimra.
in Camera.
And the first name is Chi Chi.
It's Chi-Chi. Yeah.
So I am getting the first name right.
Yeah, Chi-Chi is
Okay.
perfectly fine. It's like Mikey and Michael,
And you are the
co-founder
co founder.
and director of strategy for our organization.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we have Miss Bethany.
Hello, you've got me right. You didn't call me Brittany, so we're getting on
She
off
gets
on the
Brittany
right
a
foot here.
lot.
Now you done messed me up. Now you done messed me up. I'm gonna stay on now. You got me. I'm gonna keep it right.
You got it. You
All
got
right,
it.
don't say that no more. All right, we're gonna
So
keep it
I'm
right there.
I'm Bethany
Bethany.
Studenic. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Enlightened Solutions.
Mhm.
So happy to be here today. Thanks for hosting us.
Not a problem, not a problem. So, Chi Chi, tell us what motivated you to create Project Noir and get that project up and off the ground.
So even before
Mhm.
Project Noir became our main research project, Bethany and I actually started Enlightened Solutions in 2018, basically as on a lark, honestly, at Bethany's kitchen table. We had recently just quit our jobs. We were working within the realm of police reform. We were working for the Department of Justice.
Oh,
And we were really looking for a space where women, specifically Black women, would
mhm.
be able to not only be heard, but workplace issues would be taken seriously,
Okay.
right? So, as two millennial women, we are middle millennials. We thought this was in our mid 20s at this
Hmm.
point that the workplace was not working
Mm,
for women, and
okay.
specifically for women at our intersections, right? Bethany will tell you a little bit more about her background growing up in Wayne County, but I am Cuyahoga County through and through. I am a first generation American. I'm Nigerian American.
Okay.
And I grew up in the far east side suburbs. And I went to The Ohio State University, loved that experience. Instead of going to law school, I actually did not tell my parents and
Mm,
I became a teacher. I
really?
became a middle school teacher specifically at Title I schools. So I knew I always wanted to work within my own community, the Black community specifically, because what my parents had installed in us was this deep love and necessary for our growth was to give back to the community. So when Bethany and I decided to create Enlightened Solutions, we initially came to create a space where women were able to be heard about their harassment claims, their claims around workplace violence issues. And essentially by 2020, late 2019,
Mhm.
we were fully funded. So we were able to quit our jobs again and really dedicate time to what this endeavor was. And at that time, Bethany had sent me a news article from City Lab Bloomberg that said, in bold red letters, I will never forget, it said Cleveland, comma, worst place in America for Black women. And I think I messaged her something kind of shady, like, girl, get off my phone.
Right.
Like, duh. But
Right,
then,
right.
yeah, like, why are you telling me that you know this? I know
Right.
this. We've been working
Tell me
together.
something I don't know. Right.
Tell me something I don't know. And she was like, somebody should do something about this.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, girl,
So
somebody
who wrote
should.
who wrote the article? Or what was it? Where did it come from initially?
So it initially came out of research from the University of Pittsburgh. So a sociologist was doing anti-poverty research, essentially attempting to look at all cities that had large populations of poverty and wanted to realize and create policy around that, essentially stating that the real reason for poverty is this class divide, and if you study it, you'll be able to eradicate it. What she slowly found out, maybe not even halfway through her research, was poverty is not created by poverty. It's a series of uh, actions that are created by the government, people, policy. And what she specifically found was poverty is exacerbated by race and gender at the same exact time. So, back to your point, you said, if Cleveland's the worst for Black women, it must be worse for Black men. Actually, no. Actually, no.
All right,
Even
that's
I
good.
know.
That's why we want to have you because that's been on. Listen,
I know.
Ever since I read it, I told you from day one.
Oh, I get it.
And so it's not.
I get it, yes. And it's mainly around healthcare issues.
Oh,
I
God, I'm
know.
gonna have a like.
Oh, no. Okay. No
Watch
problem.
your thing.
You are perfectly fine.
Let me find it. So we
You're
got it.
I thought they had the votes to pass it. I was mad about it.
You already know Chuck Schumer.
He's been on my list
Oh my
a long time.
goodness. I'm fine with this Democrat. Just yeah.
He's not doing what he needs to do. I know.
My Adriana, my friend, has been furloughed for the last years because of USAID, right? She can find a job.
Yeah, I
She
hear the
had
job market is not moving.
a second job, obviously, like working. She was trying to do some strategic something for like the Colin Powell
Oh, nice. Yeah.
for her. We were like, girl, you are a Republican. But it works for her.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do in this climate.
It's like money.
Yeah.
And they closed the entire. Nobody is getting paid.
It's going to have ripple effects.
This is like because of the new stuff that's going on.
Yeah, my best friend used to work for a USAID. She was pretty high up in international development. All of their jobs are on. Yeah.
It's just in order to bring back the probationary period employees.
Yep.
That's what you think.
They just had a
At least
court
for
order, but we'll see if it'll happen. Was she probationary?
No.
She's been there for a while.
For USAID at least 7 years.
I can't remember if there's litigation now around
You
USA.
don't have your job.
It's actually
Mhm.
kind of crazy. Because
Wow.
like, do you have a security clearance? Like,
Locked him out of the building.
You weren't that. It's so wild when my wife not into that.
Mhm.
But lately, she's just been everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like limitless. I'm getting texts from her. She gets 5 o'clock in the morning working out in Texas and
It's shooting in us.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, let's 5 o'clock in the morning. I love this stuff.
It's every day now. There's
So
chaos.
every day.
It's every
There's
day.
something new.
And I told her stuff like what you couldn't, if you wouldn't have told me it was somebody, I'd be like, it didn't happen.
I know.
They couldn't do
Mhm.
that to
Now
me.
her whole office is gone.
Just can't believe it.
It's crazy.
Very crazy.
It's so crazy. I hate that happened because you was right in my wheelhouse.
Not a
We was about to start
problem.
rolling. So we got to get it
No.
right back. We're going to start around that area around where you say, Africa, this is not Africa bad for Black men.
So, just backtracking a little
Sure.
bit, it's more about the research that was happening. So,
Okay.
the research out of the University of Pittsburgh was essentially anti-poverty research,
Okay.
trying to study which regions have the worst poverty rates and how can policy alleviate it, right? But what she ended up finding out was that policy is man-made and poverty is man-made. And more than that, healthcare issues, workplace issues are stemming from it that intersect with both race and gender at the same time, but specifically and hyper specifically for Black women. So, just like you stated earlier, it's not that Black men do not have it bad. They have different issues. Some of them align with Black women, some of them do not. But around these issues for workplaces, healthcare, and education, nationwide, Black women in Northeast Ohio have it the worst in the country. And it's because of those three focus areas. And my suspicion as a researcher is probably because of the fatality issues around Black maternal health care.
I was about to say that. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you because I heard health. What was the other one?
Workplaces and education.
So I would imagine health being the number one.
It's well, for our research, it's really places that we get a
Yeah.
lot
I'm
of,
getting all my stuff wrong.
but
So you're saying
healthcare
that-
has the most, I would say, the most traumatic
Okay.
stories
Stakes
and
are the highest.
and the
'cause
stakes are the
it's life and
highest.
death.
Yeah, I do know that they do a big study on that for women with babies and
Yes.
having
Yeah.
we have the highest number of
Black maternal health
there
care
it
deaths.
is,
Yeah.
maternal
Yes.
health care.
Infant
Yes.
And
mortality and
infant
maternal
mortality.
Infant
mortality.
mortality. That's
Yeah.
what I was looking for.
We do.
Yes. And so I figured that's why I figured health was number one.
It is because the stakes, just like Bethany stated, the stakes are higher. So it's not just a Black woman is dying or a child is dying. When you start thinking about it, is a generation is lost.
Okay.
So a complete generation
Mhm.
for that person, for that
Right.
individual, is gone.
Mhm.
So yes, the workplace issues are normally how people tend to find our work. But the stakes are the highest in healthcare just because it includes that bodily
Mhm.
harm, the trauma, the mental health component, and then sometimes death.
So Bethany, in your view, how does Project Noir challenge the status quo that are aimed to create real lasting changes for Black women in Northeast?
Thanks for that question. That's a great question. When I first saw the study, like Chi Chi talked about, I sent it over to her and we started talking. And, I started talking with local leaders and asking, what are we going to be doing about this? And how do we want to address this as a community? And a lot of what I heard from white folks who look like me, was a lot of lamenting. It was, well, we don't know why we're at the bottom. We don't know what is the cause. We don't know how to address this. Maybe we'll hold a conversation or a forum, but there was no substantive project to address this. And I was frustrated with that. So part of Project Noir, from my perspective, is about holding folks accountable to these behaviors. These systemic inequalities don't come out of nowhere, right? It's not like this is just this effusive conversation that's something that nothing we can do about, right? Systemic inequality is created through a bunch of choices that we make every day, right? Policy doesn't walk into a room and discriminate against someone. It's a person, right? So every single thing that we're seeing, it is created through choice after choice, decision after decision that people are making in these institutions. And they tend to be people who look like me. So part of Project Noir was about how do we map and measure those behaviors, those tactics that are creating these systemic problems, and how do we hold people accountable to it? Right. So with Project Noir, when now I'm having conversation with folks who look like me, the conversation when they say, well, I don't know what we're doing, I don't know what we're doing wrong, I can hand in this and say, these are the things I need you to stop doing. These are the things we need to build systems around to make sure that we eradicate these behaviors, we challenge these behaviors, we train alternative methods in these behaviors, we build KPIs around these behaviors so that we can have accountability around this. It's built to tell the story from the perspective of Black women so that institutions can make changes to that behavioral interpersonal problem that we're seeing creating these issues.
So I'm gonna go back to a question with you, Chi, on this healthcare thing, and because we're going to lead into the actual project itself.
Sure.
What are some of the most disturbing insights you find as it relates to women in healthcare?
Sure. I can definitely state that the two parts to this question. So, number one, speaking overall for Project Noir, the word that was utilized the most the first time that we did Project Noir back in 2020 was that Black women are not given grace. That's the word that Black women thematically utilize, and these are women that have never met each other. This survey is completely and 100% anonymous, but Black women that were taking the survey in Lorraine, Black women that were taking the survey in Hudson, Garfield Heights, in Huff, were all using the word, "I don't have grace." When I walk into these clinics, when I walk into these hospital systems, I am not given grace. I am sick, I'm chronically ill, or I'm going here for a checkup, and yet and still my medical provider, the receptionist, the security personnel at the desk are not giving me grace as a Black woman, right? So for the healthcare stories, specifically speaking on maternal health care, the word that was utilized the most in 2024 was trauma. My birthing story was the most traumatic experience. I don't want any more children.
Wow.
Mhm.
Traumatic was the word that was utilized. It could be anything from lactation specialists not listening to Black women who are asking for help to nurse. It could be anything from a lack of informed consent. So when a medical professional is telling you about the procedure that they're going to do, they don't tell Black women the entirety of the procedure, or they leave out certain things, maybe because they believe, oh, you won't understand it. Still not informed consent. You have to do that legally. Or they're telling Black women shades of things or ignoring their pain tolerance. Pain management was a huge thing. So, for many of the stories, healthcare stories, they are heightened because Black women are going into these hospital systems. And we have four major ones within this footprint here, including our federal healthcare system, that are not listening to the needs of Black women when they are going through things that are traumatic, whether it's birthing stories, whether it's chronic illness, MS, pain management. Black women are not being heard within our systems. And just like Bethany stated, many of these academics, these medical professionals, the uh, administrators are saying, oh, woe is me, we don't know what to do. Well, you do know what to do. We've mapped it, not just statistically, but narratively from the voices of Black women.
So let's go because I'm gonna go back to something you said. You said including the ones we have in our system here, because hell, this study is about Cleveland, so I guess that is counting
They are named.
their
Yeah.
name.
Oh,
We did them a favor
Mm.
as a think tank
Mhm.
by not naming them publicly.
Wow.
But every single of the four major hospital systems, all of them are named, and they're named in horrific stories, terrible stories.
And this don't have anything to do with insurance money or anything. This the
Very
same
rarely.
people coming in getting that same type of treatment, whether they were bringing in welfare, getting the baby done that way versus my wife or anybody who got health care who was coming in there, women were being still treated. Because I heard they said even Serena Williams
mhm.
said a few things doing her thing that she felt that her process or people even and just again, we were just talking earlier that you hear some stuff, you be like, that could not happen to you.
Mm,
Money does not insulate you.
mm,
Wow.
Again, back to the original study, the sociologists thought, oh, if you can just alleviate poverty and get out of that
Hmm.
class, you will be fine. I'm a
Hmm.
Black woman from Pepper Pike. I'm
Mhm.
a classed Black woman.
Mhm.
The same lived experiences that a woman from Pepper Pike is going to have the same healthcare experiences
That is so
that a
wild.
woman in Akron or a woman in Warren or a woman in Elyria is having because it genuinely does not there is very little statistical daylight between your level of education, your class, how many resources you have. The issue is, again, going down to brass tacks, it's race and it's gender, and specifically the intersection of anti Black racism and misogynoir, which is anti Black sexism, specifically for Black women.
So what do noir mean? You said that it
Yeah.
has sorry, I finally heard you use it in a
Yes,
sentence.
misogynoir.
So what does that mean?
Well, you'll be happy to hear that Kimberly Crenshaw, who's an attorney, she's actually a Northeast Ohio native. She has talked about this idea of intersectionality and misogynoir. It's basically sexism that specifically hits Black women. So it's anti-Black sexism that only happens to Black women. So both Bethany and I experience different kinds of sexism,
Mhm.
right? And we can talk a little bit
Oh,
more about it
yeah,
in healthcare, but
yeah.
the type of sexism that I receive as a Black woman, specifically a dark-skinned Black
Mhm.
woman, is very different than the kind of sexism
mhm.
she
I can
experiences
imagine.
as a white woman.
Absolutely.
So let's switch to you a little bit, Bethany. Let's talk about the workplace.
Mhm.
Just got some information out of your report where we talked about how African American women, and I imagine women in general, are in the workplace. A report mention of retaliation, sabotage, and isolation. Can
Mhm.
you speak to how these issues hinder women and African American women specifically in the workplace?
Absolutely.
Some examples, also, if you got.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some statistics and stories here around workplaces. And we're seeing this is a really prevalent problem across Northeast Ohio. It is leading to brain drain in our region. Black
Mhm.
women are deciding to go elsewhere because of the challenges that they're facing in our local workplaces. 72% of our participants were subjected to comments or debate about racism, sexism, or other issues. a lot of those stories are not people asking polite questions, right? Not asking, "Can you educate me a little bit about this particular issue?" It's a lot of folks being kind of aggressive, "This doesn't really exist. This isn't really a problem." And the expectation that Black women are going to be educating others is an unfair expectation in and of itself. A story here is being asked by a white owner of a company if he needed to hire more white staff to attract white clientele. Then being part of a mass layoff of Black staff and replaced with white staff, also being accused of theft, which is something that we saw as well. We saw lies and accusations. We saw unfair standards. We see being passed over for jobs and promotions. We see unfair pay across the sector. And I'm also an employment attorney. I do a litigation in this space. And so I see it every day, right? And when we talk with folks, I think sometimes they think, oh, these are problems that are kind of, we're moving past. No, they're very, very, very prevalent in our local institutions, which is why we're doing this work. 67% of our participants were called angry or aggressive at work. And that was a statistic that the community asked us to ask in Project Noir 2024. We didn't ask this in 2020. And I had a lot of women come up to me over time and say, I need you to ask about this because at work, I'm often called these names. It's code for something else, right? It's coded language. And often we see it happening in two ways. Either someone is targeting that woman, and so they want to undermine her credibility before she reports something, or she's about to report something, or they're responding to a report and they're saying, oh, well, she's always angry. She's always aggressive. Nearly 70% of our participants have been called that. Right? Exclusion is a script in Cleveland. It is something that's predictable, it is measurable, and therefore it is changeable.
Explain that a little more.
Absolutely. When I talk about this, right, I think sometimes people think, oh, it's kind of all over the map. When we talk with Black women, 90% of our participants, we ask them, what did you do whenever you felt like you were dealing with systemic exclusion or you're being pushed out of a system? 90% of our participants blamed themselves. Right. So for a lot of women, the experience is to internalize this and believe what people are telling you about yourself. It hits your self esteem. It makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel like you're less than. What's powerful about Project Noir is that if 70% of our participants, and we have over 1,300 participants, if they're hearing the same words to describe them, it's not your fault. It's the system, it's a script. This is how exclusion is. And when I talk to folks who hone in on and use those exclusionary tactics, I tell them this is not inventive, right? This is not something that you're coming up with. It's not even a basis that feels even real because I see it over and over and over again as an exclusionary tactic directed at a particular group using particular language. And so, what's important about Project Noir is that if we're able to measure it, we're able to build tools to change it and hold people accountable. We have to be able to see something in order to change something.
I was just saying there that this, because that is a thing, because if it ain't angry woman, it was the angry Black man.
Exactly.
And,
Yep.
and it's code, it's all those other things you talked about as it relates to people just putting a narrative out there in the atmosphere to try to describe a different person. And some of it is, like you say, it could be even just that sometimes just speaking up for yourself.
Yep.
When you're speaking up for yourself, oh, you angry, or if you're animated a little bit, a little louder because you're expressing yourself, because you are excited.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's excitement, that finally you want to ask me about what's been bothering.
Yeah. And you're responding to something
That's unfair.
it's normal to have feelings
And
about
that. And I'm a victim of it. Because sometimes when I talk, and if I get excited, I talk very loud and very strong. And some people think, oh, Ken, why you yelling at me? Really yelling. I'm just really excited.
But here's the second part about that is this idea that when we're in the workplace, white excitement is seen as normal.
Right.
It's seen as perfectly fine. This person is a go-getter.
Right.
This person is animated. This person is passionate.
Right.
That is exactly what
All
we
the
want
words I
on the
just
team.
used.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But because I inhabit this body,
Right.
or
Right.
even to a lesser extent, but still, white women also get this
Yeah.
framing as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Is, oh my gosh, she's too much.
Right.
She's not a cultural fit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to look directly here and tell you that those phrases, right? This individual is not a cultural fit, or this individual is a DEI hire or a DEI candidate. Those are slurs. And specifically, that what we have unearthed in Project Noir is they are hyper specific slurs towards Black women. We ran the Google analysis, right? The Google Trends analysis from 2022 to I think it was April 2024. I ran the analysis to see how many times Black women are called DEI hires in the news, just a regular Google trend. It skyrocketed. It is not the same for women. It is not the same for white men. It is not the same for Black men. So why is it that Black women are constantly seen as unworthy of the success that they have gained? And why is it that we are so ready to knock down their experience, their expertise, their education and say, oh, well, she's just a DEI hire? And we are very firm in our organization by not calling it DEI. You need to call it the full phrase. You need to say, I am anti diversity, then. You are anti equity. You are anti inclusion. Say it fully. Because if you are bold enough to say the slur, you need to be bold enough to say the actual word. You need to say the entire phrase. What you mean is, you are anti Black woman. And if you don't say it fully, then you're kind of chicken.
Well, to your point, I guess to say it, you have to say
You
it.
have to say
I
it.
mean, go and own it, right?
If you don't wanna own it, then why are you ready to eradicate it? You're afraid of something because you are afraid to look into your own reflection. And the biggest part that we have uncovered in Project Noir is this idea that the demographics are shifting and America is scared for some reason. There are
Mhm.
more women with education. What is it, in law school? The first time
Yeah.
this year, more women have graduated from law school than men for the first time in American history, right? Black women have always worked, but we are now in positions of power, management, directors, owning our own businesses when we no longer want to fit within the mold of corporate America or nonprofits. It's this idea that, oh no, now my manager is a woman. They might do to me what I have been doing to them.
So is the fear.
It's a fear, but it's unfounded.
What is the fear really? Um, is the fear women in
Oh,
general,
yes. Oh, yeah.
white or black, just fear of women.
We specifically focus on Black women, but this does not mean that things are great for white women. And that's the thing that we're trying to wake up.
And
Yeah, I
when I
get
say the fear, there's a fear that some believe that people don't want to see the country become what they say the browning of America at some
Mhm.
point.
Sure.
Then they're saying that that there's not enough white men in the country, so a lot of this is to push to get more white men in. So my question is the real fear, not all of that. The real fear is women. Because maybe it
I
is
mean,
is that it? Is women is the
if you're asking
largest,
us.
biggest population of is it outpacing the Hispanic movement? Is out that's what you understand what I'm trying to
Oh,
get?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of factors. So we talk about this in terms of highly radically intersectional, right? So 48% of Generation Z and Gen Z is just in their 20s right now. They're kind of entering the workforce. They're coming out of college. 48% of Gen Z is racially and ethnically diverse. By 2045, there won't be a racial majority in America anymore, right? Women are
Sorry,
outpaced 2045.
It probably will happen sooner, to be quite
Probably,
honest.
yeah.
White
But
people are not marrying each other.
right,
I mean, who
right.
wants to, right? But so we have the racial changes, right?
That's fair.
Then we have what's happening with women, right? Women are right now outpacing men in terms of college degrees for the first time ever. We're having access, like Chi Chi said, like we've never had before.
Mhm.
30, 40 years ago, Chi Chi and I wouldn't even be able to open a bank account to open our institution. This is radical, the fact that we're able to sit here and have this conversation. 33% of Gen Z is LGBTQ, right? So we are seeing massive changes in terms of the demographics in our country. And we posit that a lot of what we're seeing right now is a reaction to that. Change is already here, right? What we're doing right now is reckoning with that and figuring out what the social order is when all of this is shifting. But we root this in. I'm often asked, like, why are you doing this work as a white woman? My
That was
response,
gonna be one of my questions.
Yeah.
you, and it should be, right? But the answer is that when Black women thrive, I thrive, right? When we think about things like the Civil Rights Act, we think about affirmative action, the biggest beneficiaries have been white women,
Mhm.
right? So if I'm going to think about limited time, limited resources, where am I going to focus my energy? I'm going to focus it on Black women because I want all women liberated. I don't want oppression alive in any form. If we leave oppression alive in any form, it grows back. It comes back and it re-oppresses us. And so my work is about making sure that we root it out at the base.
I want to get into this. It's a Project Noir 2024 report isn't just about documenting problems, it's about creating a roadmap for solutions.
Yes.
So, Chi Chi, what are some of the key recommendations that you have out in your report that will eliminate some of these actions? What do you hope will help to eliminate?
It's more than hope, it's things that I know,
Okay.
right? So the easiest way to find our call to action would be to go to projectnoircle.org, projectnoircle.org/call to action. And there you will find different subsets of where you can tap in. So if you are, let's just say, a community organization, we have a list of advocacy ideas that you can start to implement today and long term. If you're an individual, you're just a community member and you're like, what, how can I get involved? Right? You can tap in right there. If you are a philanthropist, if you are a business owner, if you are in the healthcare field, in the media, there are various different ways. We made it easy because we need to meet people where they are, right? We need to make sure that folks are able to tap in where they are. Many times in this work, especially as an interracial, women focused organization, folks are like, Chi Chi, you just hate Cleveland. You just hate Cleveland. That's why you're always talking about how bad it is here. And I cannot
You
tell
didn't
you,
make this up.
not only that, but I cannot tell you how deeply and passionately Bethany and I
Yeah.
love Cleveland. We moved to Cleveland.
Okay.
I could have very easily just been like, I'll live in Texas and stay there. No, I moved back to Cleveland. And more than that, I moved to the city, right? And Bethany lives in the city. We are specific about what we believe in because this is where we believe that change can happen, right? And just thinking as researchers, right? Bethany is a legal mind, me as a researcher, as an individual, as a community minded individual, if I know that the problems are the worst in Cleveland, Ohio, should I not go to Cleveland, Ohio? It just so happens to be the place where my American story started, where my parents' American story started. And going back to that, that's the debt that we pay for being here in this country, for being able to be successful. You need to give back and reach back to those who are not able to. You need to pass the microphone to individuals who have never had the microphone. And that's the importance of Project Noir, giving voice to Black women, because if not, this society will just ignore us. They'll say Black women are fine, they're strong, they're super women, they'll get it done, they're fine, right? We are not fine. We need the entire community to understand that this is a crisis and we need to eradicate it.
All right, ladies, I'm gonna ask you. We're rounding home. We got about 10 to 15 more.
Cool.
So all of these questions I'm gonna ask you, I want y'all when y'all answer them, look in the camera because
Okay.
these are gonna be really good questions that we gonna use for social media and stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna start with you, Bethany. In your opinion, what should the role of local government, educational institutes, and employers play in addressing these disparities, and what steps do we need to take to create meaningful change for Black women in this region? And if you want to jump in on that question too
Sure.
to follow up, I have no problem with that. But you guys remember y'all cameras, okay?
All righty.
In terms of what local institutions can do, we really need to be focusing on the granularity, right? So if we're going to make these changes, we need to make sure that we're looking at behavior. If we don't change behavior, we're not changing anything. We can write a policy, we can have a training, we can have a conversation, but if we're not making different choices, we're not going to see changes in terms of systemic outcomes. And listen, the way that we talk about this, we understand there's a moral argument here, but that's not where we hang our hat. Where we hang our hat is the fact that the future is diverse. The reality right now is that our country is diversifying more than ever. Like I talked about before, 48% of Generation Z is racially and ethnically diverse. Women are working more than ever. We have more access than ever. We are building our economic and collaborative power. We are more educated than we've ever been. We are outpacing men in terms of college degrees. We see that Gen Z is 33% LGBTQ. So the importance here is to understand that in order to be economically competitive as an individual organization or as a region, we have to understand diversity and we have to be investing in it. The future talent, the future innovation, the future inventors are going to be diverse. And we have an incredibly diverse community here in Cleveland. Cleveland is a Black majority city. If we are ever going to be able to invest in our economy here, we have to invest in the people here, and the people here are diverse. And so when we talk with organizations, the solutions are really broad, right? I think about policy, I think about training, I think about KPIs, I think about data, I think about accountability, I think about policy. But at the end of the day, we have to be investing in this if we want to survive and compete as a region.
Nothing. That was perfect. Economic argument, man. Follow the money.
Follow the money.
And the money is followed by diverse people. That's it.
Excellent. Chichi, you stressed that time for a conversation is over and now the time's for action. How can an individual and the community leaders take your report and turn this movement into a push to change this systemic for some systemic changes?
Yeah.
How can we use this as our tool to do something?
Well, definitely get in contact with Enlightened Solutions. We can definitely help you customize, modify how you would like to speak about this. But the most important thing is to share the report. Black women are sharing their stories. They shared with two people they did not even know anonymously. So, sharing the report, sharing the stories, and illustrating why this is important, not just to you, but to the future of this region, to the future of Northeast Ohio, is key. So, again, going on our social media, reposting, pressuring your local city council, your county council, your regional government agencies, individuals that are representing you. It is so important for them not only just to say, oh, good job on this report, but for them to say, what can I do in my own ward that will support Black women, right? What can I do in my own county to support Black women? Again, this is not just a Cleveland issue. Our report is all of Northeast Ohio. So when we say Lorain, Elyria, Akron, Canton, Warren, all the way up through Euclid, Ashtabula, Cleveland, and all of the surrounding suburbs, we literally mean Black women everywhere.
Don't worry about that. Beyond the data, Noir is about amplifying personal stories of Black women. The stories are not only reflective of the struggle, but they also are resilience for Black women in our community. Um, Chi
Yeah.
and Bethany both. Could you share with us a story that you guys may have gotten from your surveys or something that stick out in your mind that you want to kind of talk about? Either one, whichever one going to go first, it don't matter to me.
Sure. So I have an education themed story, mostly because I'm a former middle school teacher. I loved school. Everybody called me Susie High School. And I think that civilizations are won and lost within how they value education, right? And within our region, we are doing ourselves such a disservice when we are, alienating Black women or isolating Black women who are attempting to receive an education. I had one Project Noir story that really hit me in the heart where an individual was talking to her professor, and she says, a teacher asked me about my experience in the hood during my economics class, right? Just alienating her in the class, having the entire class look back at her and tell me what it's like to grow up in the ghetto. That had nothing to do with the class, but it had everything to do with alienating her and embarrassing her within her classmates and within her education path. Another one, Black women are expected to educate their peers, right, about social issues. So very similarly to the workplace, right, is a classmate saying, "I don't believe that racism exists," right? I don't call you a slur, so racism doesn't exist. Tell me why it's racist when I do this. And it's not the purpose of getting educated. It's a purpose of actually tearing down that Black woman's story or that Black girl's story. And it starts young. We are not insulated from these experiences. So young Black women are recalling experiences from when they're 6, 7, from the time that they're passing through their elementary schools, where teachers, administrators, peers, and classmates are isolating them from the education system, which leads Black girls to withdrawing within themselves and not necessarily feeling that they have a home within the education system.
I will add, going back to the conversation around 67% of our participants being called angry or aggressive at work. That's something that always sticks with me because as a woman, right, we have expectations too where we're always expected to be kind of dainty and approachable and likable. And I don't know, I'm 5'10", I'm a lawyer. I come in, I have things to say, right? And so I've gotten that feedback myself. But one woman talked about when she presented, she provided a thorough and detailed overview of her information. However, after her presentation, the white judges criticized her for being aggressive, despite the fact that others had presented less detailed information. There's nothing like being a woman and coming in being over prepared, agonizing over what you're going to present and how you're going to be perceived, and doing everything that you possibly can to fit the standards of femininity and beauty that's expected of you, and then to get the feedback that we didn't hear anything you said. We didn't like how you said it, and therefore we're going to discredit everything about you. When you're trying to defend a thesis or make an argument or present yourself in court or on and on and on, this undermines our ability to be effective in every setting. And for Black women, it's even more pronounced. Almost 70% of our participants have had this experience at work. And it's by design. It's to discredit our impact and to ensure that we are not effective even when we come and we over prepare and we hit every mark and we're perfect. It's still a way to dehumanize us.
Chi, as we move forward, what are one of the key things you want listeners to remember when they come in creating changes for Black
Sure.
people?
So I'll speak to Black women specifically as a sister, right? As another Black woman. You are not alone. And then, secondly, you are not to blame. Systems are designed and have been designed for centuries now to exclude not just our experience within them, but our expertise and our knowledge. Right? You are not alone when you are experiencing these experiences, and that Black women collectively can support each other by again placing this survey out there, placing the information that we've gleaned from this report out there, and making sure that other Black women who have not had access either to take the survey or to know about it know how to protect themselves. So, getting in contact with Enlightened Solutions, reading the report, sharing it with your sisters is so important for Black women to know. And more than that, for Black women to understand that you're not by yourself. Project Noir is for you, it's for Black women. But more than that, it's for our community to stand behind Black women as well.
And Bethany, and how can you ensure that the findings of this report is not going to just be just paper that we sit on, is actually going to be used for tangible actions and
So we work really hard to ensure that systems understand that this isn't something that lives, online and you read it once and you never come back to it. Again, this is supposed to be something that you're coming back and reflecting on your own behavior, the behavior of the folks in your organization and your managers. And I will say, listen, as a lawyer, something that I tell people is this is a great way to avoid liability. I can't tell you how many of the things that I see in Project Noir are things that I'm actually litigating on a daily basis. This is a great way to get in trouble is ignoring these things. I've referred out malpractice claims, right? So when we're talking about healthcare, that's another area where we see liability. So there are a lot of different ways that Chi Chi and I think about this. I think about the legal system. I think about policy. We think about the economics as well. If you want a competitive organization, this is what you need to be thinking about. Your future clients, your future talent, the future people who are going to be building and thinking about your organization are going to be diverse. And I got to tell you too, something that's happening right now is that I see folks creating their own competition, right? Because they are pushing Black women out, they're pushing women out, pushing people of color out of these institutions. We have no other choice but then to start competing organizations. And what I forecast, and I'm always right,
Yep.
is
Believe
that
it.
in the next 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see a surge of new organizations founded by and for women and people in other minority groups. And I got to tell you, we're really good at doing a lot with a little. And so I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot of competition for systems that refuse to adjust today.
Chi, here's our last question before we gonna get into our closing. And so when we get in our closing, I'm gonna ask you a question, then we're gonna let you close, then we're gonna have you close us. Okay.
Okay.
So Chi, your last question is this: what's the next steps for Project Noir? And how do you plan to keep the momentum going and continue to advocate for Black women rights, Cleveland? Yeah.
Awesome. So next steps are twofold for everyone at home, for all organizations, civic leaders, anybody that is interested in actually eradicating these issues for Black women. The next step for you is to head to projectnoircle.org/call to action and see where you fit. If you are a civic leader, you need to be heading to projectnoir.org. If you are an individual, you need to be heading to Project Noir cle.org. You need to figure out where you fit and then get to it, right? Contact us if you have any questions, if you have any ability to connect other organizations or other fields, definitely do that. But then, secondly, always connect with us online by subscribing to our newsletter. We have a ton of really great programming that will be coming up in the latter half of spring, specifically for Black women, that we are very, very excited about programs that deal with health and wellness, mental health, and then later on in the year, programs that deal with workplace issues, education issues. We are always finding ways to collaborate with the community. So definitely staying up with Enlightened Solutions on our newsletter online would be the best place to start. And then also heading to our call to action.
Right. So what we do, like we do with most of our programs, we end our program by letting you guys get an opportunity to talk to the camera and tell the peoples. I have millions and millions and millions of viewers out there that
Yeah.
watch this program. And so you get a chance to talk to those people and express to them what you want to say, whatever's on your heart. You make sure you again leave all contact information, how they can reach out to you guys and that. Bethany, go ahead. You go first. Just act like you're talking to old Zeke right there. And if you're speaking to him, you'll be speaking right to that camera.
Awesome. Well, with Project Noir and the work that we're doing, we've talked extensively about the economic case, the need for this. But I'll just say through this work, through working with Black women and building community around women's issues, I've really learned that when we work together, we all thrive. I often see folks approaching advocacy work and kind of worrying about their own intersections almost exclusively. What I really encourage you to do as an organizer and as an advocate is to think about how we find and build solidarity and alignment. That is the only way we're going to make progress, right? My liberation is not necessarily a Black woman's liberation, but a Black woman's liberation is my liberation, right? And so when I think about this, I think about how we work together and how we build bridges. Additionally, I would just say we're really interested in helping to build 21st century systems. So if you're someone who's interested in being economically competitive, if you're someone that's interested in building systems that refute and change the status quo, we're here, right? The world is changing rapidly and we need systems to do so as well. So I'd encourage you to contact us and reach out. I will also say we're doing a lot of work this year in terms of community building. So if you're here in Northeast Ohio, we look forward to seeing you at some of our upcoming events. We are planning some really awesome conversations. And so we're excited to keep organizing and pushing this message forward.
I think that the most important takeaway that I can give for this particular conversation is hyper directed at our civic leaders, our regional civic leaders, and our philanthropy class here in Cleveland. I want to remind folks that Black women are a part of our democracy and are a part of our civic leadership as well. And the quote that I am always reminded of comes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who states that budgets are moral documents. Again, budgets are moral documents. Wherever the majority of your budget lies, that is where your morality lies. That is where you think the most important things within your organization, within your civic sector actually is. If that does not include Black women in a city that is 50% Black, overwhelmingly so Black, then you are missing the mark. We are creating a space where our region is going to end up not being competitive on a national scale. So I'd like to express to our philanthropy class, to our civic leaders, to understand that investing in Black women is investing in the stability of this region. You are investing in the diversity of thought. You are investing in the inclusion of ideas, and you are investing in the equity for not just Black women, but generations of Black families, generations that will be living here, working here, and contributing to the culture, the fabric of Northeast Ohio. So making sure that folks understand that we are a part of this society. And more than that, we are a key portion of what makes this society, Northeast Ohio, run. So making sure that your budget aligns with Black women is going to be key.
Excellent. Again, I want to thank you, Chi Chi and Bethany, for joining us on today's show. It's important that this work that you guys are doing is very important. And to all our listeners out there, we asking you all to be a part of the solution. Visit Project Noir Cleve .org. That's Project Noir CLE.org. And read the full report and listen and check out the podcast and listen to everything that they're talking about in this podcast. It'll be helpful. And go to the website, check out their report, and read it for yourself. And if you want to do something and get more involved with what they're doing, all you have to do is reach out to them and let them know, and they'll connect you and get you all in. We're going to have them on from time to time just to get some more information and keep up with what they're doing. They're doing some good work over there as relates to some of the reports that they're doing. We're going to ask them to try to help us get some reporting to help out some of the brothers too, because we need some help too. So we're going to work with them on all of that. I appreciate the work you guys are doing with the consent decree. I know, not the consent decree.
We did.
Oh,
That
y'all
was
did some work
years
with the
Years
that was
consent
ago.
what,
decree
10
too?
years ago.
Just
Yeah,
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
but I was really talking about the Commission on African American Women. You
Yes,
guys
we
are
wrote that
involved in that as
prospectus.
well. You put that together. My last question, I should have put this in there, but I'm gonna ask you guys this. And this will be our last question. People, we signing off after this question. Question is, out of all this reporting and everything, was you guys surprised that the country did not vote for Kamala Harris?
Woo! How do you want to address this?
Surprised? Surprised? No.
No, not at
No.
all.
No.
Not at all. I find it endlessly frustrating, I would say, specifically because we know that Project Noir could have been written for Kamala Harris. This is a woman that was in all branches of government, has been excellent her entire life from all aspects. Nobody has ever said that this woman has not been dedicated to her career, to her education, to her community. Um, but surprised, no. But what I will say is that this country has to do a lot of soul searching, and it's not just because, from a personal note, that was my candidate of choice. It's mostly because if we are okay with foregoing excellence in this country, right, then where is our country actually going? That is probably that is my biggest issue around there.
That is
Yeah.
that's the most legitimate one I done heard. What guy? That's gonna be hard to beat right there.
That's why
I
we're a
wouldn't
team.
want to beat it. No. The only thing I'll add is that,
That was strong.
the shifting demographics in America, this isn't a surprise. We're at a turning point. And when we're at a turning point, things tend to get difficult, right? We're having conversations, we're trying to figure out how we operate in this new reality. And I think sometimes we lose sight of how quickly society has changed. We're both millennials. We grew up pre-internet, which
Yeah.
is like prehistoric to kids these days, right? It's hard to even think about. The world is changing so rapidly every single day. And so we expect disruption and we expect difficult conversations and we expect back and forth. The thing I say as an advocate is that the pendulum always swings, right? Every time that we make progress, there's going to be resistance. It's not advocacy work if there's not resistance. I say as an advocate, if I'm not making somebody mad, I'm not pushing hard enough. Right. So at the end of the day, surprise? No, absolutely not. But we do think that there is a future here, but we need to be working together. And that's why we hit the intersectional lens so hard because we're up against a lot right now. And so we need to be thinking about each other and building community in radical ways.
I'm gonna
Hey, I
ask you
got a
another
question.
Go ahead.
This is for Bethany. Now, as a white woman, do you get any flack for being
Woo.
so pro black woman, and pushing these projects along with Chi Chi?
Chi-Chi's chuckling. The answer is yes. Yeah, quite
lot.
a bit. Yeah, I get a lot of pushback. I'm pretty accustomed to it. I'm from a rural area originally.
Where you?
I'm originally from Wayne County. I was rural. I was very rural, very
We were
rural.
driving out there. I
Yeah,
said,
that's what
"What? Where are
I know,
we?"
like Wayne County. Okay,
There's
you were
nothing out there.
okay.
So yeah, I'm from a rural area. I'm from a evangelical upbringing. I was homeschooled up
Okay.
until college, and I came out into the world and I saw what the world really was. And I changed my mind on a lot of things. So I'm someone who's come from very traditional upbringing to who I am today, and I face a lot of resistance in my own community about that. People don't understand. They don't understand the intersectionality. But when I talk to white women and they read Project Noir, they say, "Well, I went through that too." And I go, "Well, great. Then we should be working together, shouldn't we?" Right? At the end of the day. But, again, we see folks kind of struggling with that and struggling to reach across the aisle and struggling to build empathy for other folks. And that's why I hit that so hard all the time. But yeah, definitely get pushback. And like I said, as an advocate, if I'm not making somebody uncomfortable, I'm not happy with myself, right? I want to keep pushing.
I will add to this. I was laughing so hard about it because she's being really kind about the adversity that she's faced from other white
Okay.
women, more broadly, white folks in general. When you are a white woman in this space, especially as a Black woman, the first thing to do is to be suspicious. Like, why is she here?
Right.
Like, why are you doing this work for real?
Mhm.
And then many times folks will pull me aside. Why is she really doing this work? And I have to explain to people that there is a foundational connection between Bethany and I. We have the same values. It's this idea that you don't start with the easiest problem, you start with the hardest. So when Bethany goes inside these rooms that are majority white, if not all white, because she mostly handles that, She is telling them to their face, you're not doing the best that you can, and you should be doing better.
Mhm.
You are actually sitting on your hands. You should be doing more at your intersections and challenging people directly to their face, looking like them, coming from situations that are sometimes worse than they have ever experienced, and telling them that they have every opportunity to do better. Actually, very radical for somebody to do that. And I very much so commend her. I'm not giving her extra credit, but it is something to be said of when folks are pulling me aside and pulling her aside and asking her the question, she gets a lot of flack. A lot.
I can imagine.
Mm.
I can imagine. Good, Latif?
Yeah, that was great.
Excellent. We're gonna weave that into the program again.
Cool.
So I'm gonna ask you another question. That- Oh, did I do my closing?
I thought
No,
you
I
did
did.
your
Let me do a
closing.
closing just in case.
All right.
All right, I want to thank you guys again for coming in on our program. You did an excellent job. You educated us on everything we need to know. And people, we're going to put every way you can reach them in the description on this program. So you'll be able to get the website and how you can reach out and get more information about
Solutions.
enlightened
We have all
solutions.
the solutions,
They
folks.
have they're smart people over there and they got all the answers. So you want to go there and get some information from, or if you got something you want them to do a study on or any of that kind of thing or research, that's what they do. So if you got a issue or you got something you think is interesting, give them a call, talk to them, and maybe it's something they might want to take up for themselves.
Yeah.
So again, want to thank you guys for tuning into our program. We'll have all that information in the description and we'll see y'all the next week. Peace.